In our series of interviews with the 6 major candidates who want to be Ohio's next governor. The University of Akron's Bliss Institute of Applied Politics wants you to see and hear them and compare their positions to help you decide who you should vote for on May 8th and who should lead our state. I'm Tom Beres, former senior political correspondent for WKYC TV in Cleveland, and with us this morning is Republican Lieutenant Governor Mary Taylor. Lieutenant Governor, may I call you Mary?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much for being here.
Good morning.
All right, so let's dive right in.
Sure.
The campaign began with 4 women major party candidates running for governor. You are the last woman standing here at the moment. Ohio does not have a very strong record of electing women to major statewide offices. I believe it's one of 23 states that has not elected a woman governor yet. Why is that? What will it take to change that?
Well, I'm not sure I can say why that is, but I would say that this year they have a really good chance. Ohioans have a really good shot at electing a woman, well, it'll be a Republican in this case because I'm the only woman running for governor. Look, I think that as candidates, what I hope is that voters judge us based on our qualifications and based on our track record. And then, of course, look at what our hope and vision is for the future. Those are the things to me that matter when you are making a decision about who's going to lead your state.
Okay, so you're not really stressing the gender issue and the glass ceiling and being a possible first elected woman governor. Why are you not taking more advantage of that?
So I have been pretty clear, at least on the Republican side. We talk a lot, the Republicans talk a lot about, you know, this kind of Big Tent, and we want to have our party more reflect, you know, the Ohioan. And I don't know that we do a good enough job doing that. And I think it's time to stop giving it lip service and start actually focus on how do we be a more inclusive party, which includes, you know, women and minorities and all.
So to be more specific, I mean, basically the Republican Party has endorsed a statewide candidate of all white male choices here. So you do not believe the party cares about diversity, is doing enough to encourage diversity, and you also use the term the old boys network. To me, that has a ring of chauvinism about it in there. Are you saying the people who are in charge of making decisions in the Republican Party are chauvinists who don't care about diversity?
What I'm really saying about the Ohio Republican Party is it's stuck in the establishment, and it's too a part of this Columbus good old boy establishment status quo, and I think they reflected that very well when they made the endorsements that they made in the statewide races. As I've traveled the state, folks in Columbus need to get outside of Cap Square and need to go talk to Ohioans in every part of our state. And you know, I think 2016 reflected very well, not only in Ohio but across our country, that we're sick and tired of the establishment and the status quo, and we want people who are willing to challenge the status quo. And in this race, for me, Mary Taylor is the only candidate willing to do that.
You have called Mike DeWine, your opponent, quote, a shill for entrenched special interest and lobbyists and a career politician with a liberal voting record. So do you think a lifelong career in politics, specifically his lifelong career in politics, is something to be ashamed of?
It's not what's going to change our state. It's not what is going to give our state its best opportunity for our future success. You know, look at his voting record. He voted not once or twice, but 3 times for amnesty when he was in the U.S. Senate, back when we didn't even know what that meant. He voted to give Social Security and pay college tuition for illegal immigrants. Again, this was back before we were even talking about this. He is so a part of the establishment because of his over 40 years on the public dole. He believes government solves problems, but in fact, it's not government that solves problems, it's people.
Both your most frequently run TV ad and his, at least to this point, most frequently run TV ad, well, frankly, kind of, in my opinion, sort of take the low road. His ad about you says, well, can't find her work records. She's a slacker. She was flying in a state plane for personal business. And boy, the revolving door on her office, she goes through staff members like socks. And as if somehow that should define your career. Actually, one of the campaign accounts he used actually had a hashtag that said, lock her up. What do you think about that?
So, unfortunately, because Mike DeWine is a liberal and his voting record reflects that. But yet in this Republican primary, he's trying to run as a conservative. The only place he has to go is to personally attack and slander me, because he cannot defend his liberal voting record. The definition of one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what Mike DeWine represents. He is the establishment. He has a liberal voting record, and yet today he is trying to convince Republican primary voters that he's a conservative, when what we really could expect is more of what we've seen from Mike DeWine. He has no place to go. He cannot defend his liberal record. So unfortunately, he's going to those personal attacks and slandering me.
Let's talk about the issues that he raises in that commercial briefly, about implying you're a slacker, without, I think, printing your response. It was in the article about it that you work at home a good portion of the time. How do you address that issue?
Look, we're living in a modern world, and the ability to work from anywhere that you are is available to every single Ohioan, and many Ohioans are in fact doing that. I think, again, it's unfortunate that Mike DeWine doesn't understand how the private sector works, because he's been, the only thing he's ever done is to be a government elected official. He doesn't understand how the private sector works, and therefore he's not capable of bringing those private sector solutions to government. And so again, he's going up on TV, hiding behind his ad company, hiding behind his cronies in Columbus, and going out and personally attacking me because he doesn't have anything positive to say about what his vision is for the future of Ohio.
All right, so briefly, other issue in the ad, questioning your managerial skills and ability to perhaps get along with people, suggesting, boy, your office is a revolving door, staffers come in, staffers go out. How do you address that?
Once again, I'll go back. Mike DeWine doesn't understand how the private sector works. I manage with a private sector mentality. I worked for 16 years as a CPA in the private sector, and when people aren't doing their jobs, you fire them. And I support individuals who want to seek other opportunities. And you know, serving in the lieutenant governor's and the governor's office, there are lots of opportunities for younger people, and it is not uncommon for them to seek other opportunities. But I believe what Ohioans expect from us is that we bring this private sector mentality and we manage government the way that the private sector is managed. When people aren't doing their job, you need to get rid of them and find somebody who's going to do the job that not only I expect, but Ohioans expect.
All right, finally, questionable use of a state plane one time.
So that's out there. There was no wrongdoing. It was absolutely never determined that there was wrongdoing. I repaid the dollars out of an abundance of caution, but that's been litigated. There's
right.
No wrongdoing there.
Non-issue in your opinion.
It's a non-issue.
Okay. You and Mr. DeWine are both, I think, trying to grab President Trump's coattails to a certain extent. You got a shout out from him at his most recent appearance in northeastern Ohio, and I believe Mr. DeWine was not there for schedule conflict or whatever. What spin do you put on just that little moment?
So it's interesting that Mike DeWine, from some comfort of some space that he's hiding in because he's not out there in the public, and he won't have a debate so Republicans can really see what he stands for, he didn't make it a priority to be there to support the President of the United States when he was visiting Ohio, yet he wants Ohioans to believe, or Republican voters to believe, that he supports the policies of the President. I have made every effort to be where the President is when he's in the state of Ohio. And in fact, three times I have been in the same room with the President. I think it's vitally important, not only when it's the President of your own political party. I think that's really important. But if the opportunity arises and it's a President of the other political party, to show respect for the office. And where was Mike DeWine? He wasn't there last week, and in fact, he won't say where he was. The most important thing you can do if you want to be the governor of the state of Ohio is to develop and build and continue a great relationship with the administration, because that's what allows Ohioans to benefit the most by our time serving in office.
So you don't buy the unbreakable commitment, previously scheduled engagement excuse?
He won't say where he was. Where was he? Where was he? I made every effort to be there. In fact, I was there because it's a priority to me to be present when President Trump is in the state. In fact, I've also visited with him in the Oval Office talking about a major economic opportunity for the state of Ohio. You've got to build these relationships, and then you've got to foster them and allow them to grow. And that's how Ohio is going to best benefit from electing a Mary Taylor to serve as governor, not just the way that I will fight for our state, but also to be able to go to Washington and to be able to make the case for what's best for the state of Ohio.
Can you disclose what the subject of your discussion was and what that package of, or what that economic project would be?
I can now, because it's come out public. We have continued to work on the cracker facility in Belmont, Ohio, and I was traveling to D.C. to meet with some executives of the company and the board to talk more about the project, and we ended up in the Oval Office in discussions with the president and other staff at the White House, reinforcing how important this project is to the state of Ohio. And a recent announcement was made that PTT Global has brought on a partner to help them invest in this very, very large facility, somewhere between $5 and $10 billion project to construct this cracker facility in Belmont, Ohio. It's a huge opportunity, not just for the southeastern part of our state, but for the entire state, an opportunity to help us become energy independent.
The president indicated that he and his administration would be supportive and helpful for this?
The president was very curious and interested in this project, and he's always interested in growing jobs in our country. And this one, of course, for me, was very specific to growing jobs in Ohio.
All right. A couple of good government groups, including the League of Women Voters, are hoping to raise the overall tone and level of both campaigning and governance in Ohio to make it more civil, more respectful. Is that a reasonable request?
You know, politics is, it gets messy, especially when you're in contested primaries. My campaign has stayed focused on reminding voters of Mike DeWine's liberal voting record, and unfortunately, Mike DeWine's campaign's focused on personally attacking and slandering me because he has nothing to offer.
Okay, but I mean, do you think the reality of where politics is in Ohio now is negative and nasty works and all's fair and love war and politics?
You know, everybody always says that it's messier now than it's ever been, but I think if you go back and you look at history, politics always gets a little messy. And I think in some ways, having debate and discussion around important subjects does warrant disagreement. Now, I try to do it in a civil way, and I hope that others will try to do it in a civil way. But the fact that we disagree doesn't mean that we have to be disagreeable or that we have to treat each other in a way that's not appropriate. But, you know, politics is messy.
Keeping in that same civility and respect for other viewpoints theme, can you cite any instances in your career where you've reached across the partisan aisle to work with a member of the opposite party to do something beneficial, constructive, maybe even a constructive compromise?
Wow, that's a great question. I have always tried to develop and build great relationships with everyone, regardless of what their political party is. And reaching across the aisle. One example, I worked with, is it Representative Bo Cherry now from eastern part of the state. He called my office because of a business in his district that had an issue, that CSI, Common Sense Initiative, which I lead, regulatory reform. He wanted to know if there was something that we could do to help this particular business in his district. And in fact, we did. So it doesn't matter to me what your partisan politics, what it is. I'm going to stand up and do the right thing and fight for the right thing, regardless of your partisan politics.
As governor, would you try to promote more of that spirit?
Absolutely. I think that we should be looking for ways that we agree and look for ways that we can get things done together. Now, there are going to be times we disagree, and that's just the way it is. But I think we should always be looking for how do we best serve Ohio? How do we best bring more jobs to our state? And doing that in a bipartisan way is absolutely doable.
A lot of critics of the state legislature right now claim that it's focused perhaps too much on ideological, hot-button issues, and maybe are we going to have a state dog or not, and not enough on substantive, economic job creation, educational, healthcare issues. As governor, what could you do to maybe make the legislature more productive? Perhaps you think their agenda is fine.
So as governor, what I will do is drive my policy priorities through my budget. And the budget is really your biggest statement about where you stand on policy issues. So how do we bring more jobs to Ohio? We do that through reforming our education system, getting rid of Common Core, allowing local control with regard to decisions around education, setting graduation standards that reflect our values, giving kids the opportunity to go to college prepared, or giving kids skills they need in high school through vocational education so that when they graduate, they can immediately get a job. So my policies will be focused on job creation and lifting every single Ohioan, but that will be part of my very first budget.
All right. President Trump has been in office 15 months, give or take. Are Ohio and its residents better off now than when he took office because of things he has done or not done? And give us some examples of why you think the way you do.
So I will say these are not necessary. This is not only my perspective or my opinion, but it's my perspective based on the travels that I've been doing. Talking to Ohioans that have said to me, for example, in real estate, residential real estate, homes are selling and they're still selling. And in fact, the comment made to me the other day, it's a seller's market. Prices are up. I've talked to many business owners, small business owners who say, I could grow my business. The economy is booming. We're doing better. We just need the workforce. I was at the tax event that President Trump did in Cincinnati, Ohio, where you had several business owners get up and speak about what the Trump tax cuts meant to them and their ability to not only give bonuses to employees, but also to give raises to employees. In fact, a company in Northeast Ohio, I believe, doubled the raise that they were intending to give to their employees because of the Trump tax cuts and because the economy is doing well and they're doing well, and now they're able to return more of those dollars back to their employees. There was a lady that stood up who was an employee of one of these companies who got a bonus and obviously more money in her paycheck because of tax cuts. She's going to use that money to help pay for her daughter's college tuition. People, I will tell you, people believe that our future is bright. And the people that I'm talking to believe it's because of what President Trump is doing in Washington.
Are you for or against the president's tariffs on steel and aluminum? Do you think they'll create more jobs in those industries or take away jobs in other industries that depend on those metals? And are we all going to wind up perhaps paying more for commodities and items that we all purchase because of a trade war? Where are you on that?
So I am generally a free market capitalist. But I will tell you, being a free market capitalist presumes that there's a level playing field. And for too many years, the United States has not been on a level playing field when you look at our trade with China and the trade deficit that we have. So at the end of the day, we can compete, we will compete, and we will do very well if we have a level playing field. And so I support what the president's trying to do in order to level the playing field so that the United States companies, so America, so our country can compete on that level playing field. When we do that, we will do very well.
So you believe that you support these tariffs? You think they're a good start toward what the president's trying to accomplish?
Based on what I am seeing and hearing, I do believe this is a good step in the right direction to level the playing field so that Americans can compete again.
Being a conservative, I think, also implies to many people a belief in family values. Are you comfortable with the president's sometimes crude and coarse style and behavior and treatment of women?
So, I'm like a lot of people that I talk to across the state. There are times when I wish there were certain tweets that wouldn't be sent. But I can tell you right now, this president is standing up for life in a way that no other president has done. He is standing up for those American traditional family values that as a conservative I believe in. He has the support of pastors who I respect because every single day the president is fighting for those traditional family values that ultimately we have to restore in our state and in our country in order for people to live their God-given potential.
You portray yourself as the staunchest possible defender of Second Amendment rights. A new survey, I think Baldwin-Wallace poll, shows now that, at least according to it, a majority of Ohioans, including those in both parties, are in favor of some type of ban on military assault weapons, and you are against it, right?
First of all, they talk about military assault weapons. There's no definition for that. So let me just be clear. I am an ardent defender of the Second Amendment, and it's vitally important to keep us safe and to protect us from the overreach of government, which is what it was, traditionally intended for. Unfortunately, the knee-jerk reaction of establishment career politicians when we have these tragedies that we've seen in this country is immediately to go to reducing our Second Amendment rights instead of focusing on the root cause of these problems. Broken individuals, broken families, values that don't respect life.
Right.
It's secure the buildings.
But isn't easy access to weapons perhaps a part of that equation?
No, no. We've had our Second Amendment rights since the founding of our country, and today we have more of these types of mass shootings than we've ever had before. It's the breakdown of the family and the breakdown of values that we respect life. And so taking away guns from law-abiding gun owners is not going to prevent the next awful tragedy. We have to follow the laws that exist and deal with the root cause of the problem.
But I think many people who consider themselves middle of the roaders and say, I believe in the Second Amendment right to have a weapon to protect yourself and your family, or for sport, or for hunting. But I don't understand why it's necessary for an ordinary citizen to have a military assault weapon that's able to meant to kill large amounts of people in a short amount of time. What is the justification for an ordinary citizen having that kind of weapon?
The problem with the discussion is that we're throwing around terms that don't have definitions and people don't even know what that word means. Instead of leaders standing up.
Well, I think they're talking about the kinds of weapons that have been used in Las Vegas and used in the Florida school shooting. I mean, yes, there are nuances upon different kinds of weapons.
But again, go back to the facts in Florida. We have an individual who was broken, right? Everybody knew it. Not everybody, but it's in the public. People knew it. Students were not surprised. The police or the sheriff had been warned. The FBI had been contacted.
The system failed in a lot of places.
The system failed. Why don't we focus on the system failures?
Why can't we focus on both places?
Because it's not, taking away the guns of law-abiding gun owners is not going to prevent the next tragedy. I will stand firmly on our Second Amendment, but I will focus firmly on the root cause of the problems that will actually do something to prevent the next tragedy. I will also reinforce the importance of valuing life and respecting life and helping to build that family structure again to deal with another of the root cause, which is broken people.
All right, let's get back to something everybody agrees on, job creation. 450,000 new private jobs were created on Governor Kasich's watch. And Jobs Ohio, he claims, helped land big projects, but Ohio has lagged behind the monthly state average for job creation for, I believe it's 63 months in a row. Is Ohio's economy lagging or growing?
We could do better. And I intend to do better for our state. And again, as I've traveled and I've talked to business owners, what I have concluded the single biggest issue that's preventing from businesses from growing and creating jobs is workforce. We don't have the people trained to take the jobs that exist in the marketplace. Driving over, I looked at the Ohio Means Jobs website, over 183,000 jobs open in Ohio today. We have to start training people to take the jobs that exist in the marketplace. We have to fix our education system and go back to reinforcing the importance of vocational training, and I will do that through my graduation standards.
I believe there are some surveys that project that the state will have to produce 1 million more either college graduates and special postgraduate trained workers to deliver the workforce that employers want by the year 2025. Is that a realistic goal, and how would a Taylor administration accomplish that?
So what we know is we need about 60 to 65% of our Ohio high school students to graduate from college. And what I will do is, through my graduation standards, I will give students choices and make sure they are prepared for their future. Number one, again, eliminate Common Core, restore local control. get rid of this crazy testing that we do that is not producing better results. And what I will have is graduation standards. Number one, a minimum GPA. Number two, if you're going to college, your graduation test will be the ACT, and you will be required to get the minimum score that is necessary to get into college remediation free. If you're not going to college, your graduation requirement's going to be vocational education and training in high school, but graduating with a career credential, a license, or a certification to get a job and immediately go to work upon graduation. We're also going to have to grow our workforce, and we're going to have to get able-bodied adults back to work. And so our effort should be focused on giving those individuals skills so that they can get back to work in a productive job that helps them support their families. So it's not just one solution, but I see it really as three solutions. Well, four. And we have to deal with the addiction crisis.
We'll deal with that in a minute here. Let's talk briefly about charter schools. Are you in favor of continuing to give significant public funding to charter schools?
I support families' rights to choose the type of education that most benefits their children. What I propose to do is to reform our charter school system to return it to what it was originally intended to be, centers of innovation and true quality choice for Ohio families. There are quality charters and they need to be in Ohio. I support charter education as a viable alternative for a quality education for Ohio families.
Do you agree Ohio has dropped the ball in governance, a lot of charter schools? I mean, people look at the ECOT scandal as a huge example of wasn't anybody paying attention?
So what we need to do with our charter school system in Ohio first is, we have unnecessary and duly burdensome regulatory requirements. Yet we need to have appropriate measures to hold anybody who's spending tax dollars accountable for the results that they're getting. We need quality charters in Ohio, and I will propose reforms to bring those quality charters to our state so that families do in fact have quality choice.
On the subject of jobs again, Columbus is still, at least on paper, in the running for the big prize, the Amazon second headquarters. Obviously, a lot of variables that we don't all understand, but realistically, do you think they still have a chance?
I'd like to think realistically we have a shot at anything, any opportunity. And so what I would say in this regard, again, we've got to deal with the workforce issue. We've got to deal with having people in our state able to take these jobs. And for me, it's the four things that I've rolled out to start going seriously after making sure we have a properly trained workforce to take jobs that exist in the marketplace.
Now, we know the state and we know Columbus are offering a lot of incentives and carrots and big inducements to Amazon to try to come here. Do you support large public subsidies to try and get huge job creation projects like that from prosperous firms? Or do you think there's an enough is enough place to draw the line?
Well, where you have, the way you focus on the incentive side is you look at your overall tax system and your overall tax code. And my intent and goal would be to drive simplification and ease of compliance through our tax code. Where you have low rates that are simple and fair, it makes it less necessary to provide incentives. And so I will continue to drive compliance reform, making it easier to file a tax return in the state of Ohio through our tax code, continue to look for opportunities to lower the rates. But at the end of the day, we need to compete for these jobs, and we need to put our best foot forward when these opportunities arise.
Okay, but is there at some point where you think that public subsidy would reach a point of excess that?
So what I would say with regard to that, and really any program, anything that government funds, you have to look at the cost-benefit analysis, and you have to look at the outcomes. And if the outcomes aren't the results you expected, then we have to question whether or not it's working. And so I don't think that you should ever just say we're gonna have all of these incentives available and offer them without understanding what the cost-benefit analysis is, and is this in fact going to be beneficial to Ohioans and Ohio taxpayers? If the answer is no, then you don't do it.
Would you maintain and keep operating Jobs Ohio as part of your job creation strategy?
Jobs Ohio has been a vital tool for us to attract new companies
You
and
think
new
you
jobs
think
to
it's
the state
delivered
of
what it was
Ohio.
supposed to deliver?
I support Jobs Ohio. That doesn't mean I'm not going to take a look at the way they do business and look at the areas that they're focused on and make some adjustments that I think better reflect our future. But yes, I do believe having individuals from the private sector working with individuals in the private sector, it is way better than having bureaucrats in Columbus trying to understand what it is a business needs in order to grow and be successful.
All right. Switching subjects to one which we all know has been very personal and painful for you and your family, the opioid addiction crisis. We know you have two sons who have been battling problems, and hopefully they're in a better place and on a road to recovery. What has that experience taught you about the deficiencies and the existing measures, programs, and strategies in Ohio to deal with this? And as governor, what would your program be to get a better handle and actually try to stop the tragic results of this?
There is no doubt this addiction crisis is, it's almost overwhelming at times for certainly parents and families dealing with this. And my boys are doing well today, but as addiction goes, one day at a time. What I've learned is that we have to build out a comprehensive continuum of care in the state of Ohio to help those living in addiction restore their lives. It's not a government solution, and so my plan instead will incentivize the private sector, which I include to be for-profit, not-for-profit, but also our faith-based community to step up and help us build and grow the continuum of care necessary to help those living in addiction be able to be, productive, happy, healthy, sober individuals in our communities. I've also heard from law enforcement across the state that we don't have enough boots on the ground in order to make the case against drug dealers. We also learned recently that Mike DeWine, as Attorney General, has a backlog of drug tests sitting at BCI that is standing in the way of prosecutions to get these drug dealers off our streets and hold these people accountable. That is unconscionable to me. This is the biggest social crisis we face in the state of Ohio, and we need an all-hands-on-deck approach. And again, it's not a government solution, but in the case of the Attorney General's office, Mike DeWine should have done his job and given what was necessary to prosecutors and other law enforcement who are trying to hold these drug dealers accountable. We need to get these guys off our streets.
And the funding for all these programs and facilities and resources, again, would come from?
So what I'm proposing is to put before the voters of the state of Ohio a bond issue that they will have the choice to approve or not. Hopefully they'll approve it, and we'll use the proceeds to incentivize through either low interest rate loans or grants to help that private sector build out the continuum of care that's necessary.
No taxes at all? No taxes at all?
Absolutely no taxes. It will be done in the context of the budget, and it will just be a major priority for me, and resources will be available in the context of the current budget.
Ohio currently has more than $2 billion sitting in the rainy day fund. Some people said, well, we ought to use it on infrastructure and rebuild roads and bridges and fill potholes. And some people have said we ought to reimburse the cities and the school systems that lost so much state funding over the last few years. Some people even want to use it to address the opioid crisis. What would you use the rainy day fund for? What's your definition of a rainy day?
So protecting the financial and fiscal health of the state of Ohio is the most important thing we can do for job creation. Businesses need to have certainty, and they're not going to grow here or come here if they are uncertain about what their tax climate is going to be. I do not support spending the rainy day fund on any of the things that you have just mentioned because those need long-term sustainable solutions, and just taking one-time money out of the rainy day fund is not going to help us address the long-term issues or concerns that are the topics that you mentioned. So,
what is your definition of a rainy day then?
We faced, let's see, when you face, significant economic downturns that warrant spending resources that aren't available, and right now that we're not there. We're not facing an economic downturn. In fact, in my conversations with business all over the state of Ohio, the economy is doing just fine.
Okay. Let's touch on some subjects briefly, if we could. Ohio lawmakers are now looking at a bill that would be a complete ban on abortion, no exceptions made for women's health or for rape victims. If you were governor, that bill came to your desk, would you sign it?
Yes. In fact, I was the only woman in the legislature when I was there to co-sponsor a bill to ban abortions with no exceptions.
And there are a great many legal minds that say, well, this is patently unconstitutional and it's a waste of time and energy for the legislature to even be discussing this. To those people, you would say?
Our Constitution and our founding documents that are clear without life, then none of these other rights are given to us. I am staunchly pro-life without exception, and we have to protect life before our other constitutional rights are given to us.
All right. A right-to-work law is getting discussion in various communities around the state. Should Ohio have a right-to-work law like many of its neighboring states do in order to compete, or the vicious political battle that set off not be worth, if you believe it's a good thing, the benefits? Do you support a right-to-work law?
So let's start with where we are as a state. We're a referendum state. That issue needs to go to the ballot. You know, I was there fighting for Senate Bill 5, which was essentially right to work for government workers. And when I turned around, the business community wasn't standing behind me. This issue needs to be driven by the business community. They need to put it on the ballot. Ohio voters should make this decision. But the business community needs to support it and get it on the ballot, and then financially support the campaign that will come.
Okay. Possible vote on recreational marijuana?
No.
No, absolutely no. It's dead in the water, not worth discussing, in your opinion.
I am absolutely opposed to recreational marijuana.
Okay. Would you support a step-by-step approach to increase Ohio's minimum wage to $15, an incremental little bit every year until we get to $15 an hour?
No.
Because
that is a decision that should be made in the private sector. And as the economy is doing well, and employers are competing, that's where wages should, wages are determined based on that. The market will drive where those wages should be.
Okay. 10 years ago, Ohio voters voted to put a lid on interest rates that could be charged for payday loans. Somehow payday lenders have managed to keep offering similar products with high interest rates and do it legally. The state legislature now looking at various measures to address that in one shape or form. I believe a particular bill, House Bill 123, would cap interest rates at 28%. Do you think there needs to be a lid on payday lending?
What I think needs to happen is, and now with Richard Cordray gone from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, hopefully this will get done. His over-regulatory, burdensome way of throwing down the hammer on banks and other institutions who could make these loans and serve the lower income population is exactly what created the environment where these payday lenders could thrive. So I'm hopeful now that Richard's not in that position, and that we'll get some common sense approach over there and allow these banks who have previously very well served this population, give them the chance to go back and create products and design products to meet the banking needs of the very individuals that are using these payday lenders.
There are a lot of statistics and reports out say, well, the average rate for some of these products now 591% interest rates. Do you believe that there needs to be some reins put on the industry?
So where everybody wants a big government, not everybody, Democrats and Mike DeWine want a big government solution to every problem, those aren't the solutions. It's not the heavy-handedness of government, but instead we need to let the market work. And the overly burdensome regulations coming from the CFPB has exactly created the environment that we're in today.
All right. Should Ohio's anti-discrimination law for jobs and housing be expanded to include members of the LGBTQ community?
Ohio's laws today adequately protect all of us with regard to discrimination issues.
You believe that? You don't believe that people can be fired for gender issues or?
I do not support expanding our definitions of protected class
So those individuals don't deserve the same rights that members of other classes do, religion and race?
First, let's just say that God has given us our rights, and I believe in the value of the human being, and I do believe that our current statutes adequately protect all individuals.
Okay. Your relationship with Governor Kasich now, I guess, could be described as tenuous, perhaps. Some people say, well, she turned her back on him. He gave her the job that made it possible for her to run. Isn't that biting the hand that feeds you? What about people that are kind of puzzled by your relationship with Governor Kasich now.
So what I'm focused on, and everybody wants to talk about that, right, because it makes a headline somewhere. I'm focused on defining for the Ohio voter who is Mary Taylor, and being very clear that I did not walk away from my conservative principles like many believe John Kasich did, and instead, who is Mary Taylor? What are, she is the conservative choice on the Republican side, and what are her plans for the future of the state of Ohio? So my efforts and my time is really all being focused on exactly those things I believe that matter to Republican primary voters.
When was the last time you had a meaningful conversation with Governor Kasich?
I don't remember. I don't recall.
Wouldn't it be less awkward to just quit, maybe?
I'm not a quitter. I'm not a quitter. I'm going to stand and fight for my principles and my conservative values no matter where I am.
All right, final question. One word or one phrase as we speak right now, Ohio's single biggest problem is what?
Workforce.
All right. Mary Taylor, thanks very much for coming and sharing your views, and good luck on May 8th. So this afternoon, we're going to hear from Democratic former Supreme Court Justice Bill O'Neill, and our walk-off message: take time, vote early by mail or in person May 8th. Thanks for watching. Take care.